big Finish set that I was overall really disappointed with last year was the Fourth Doctor Adventures Series 11 Part 1 Solo. Now, Series 11 Part 2, which had the 9, was an awful lot better, like a significant improvement, but Part 1 Solo, which had Blood of the Time Lords and the Ravencliff Witch, was a bit of a disappointing start to Tom Baker's 11th series as the Fourth Doctor for Big Finish, which is an outstanding amount of stories to have told in the audio medium, but, you know, Tom Baker just loves being the Doctor, apparently. But one of these stories was the Ravencliff Witch, which sees the Fourth Doctor travelling solo on his own, meeting Margaret Hopwood, who is played by Nerys Hughes. Margaret is an artist, a sculptor from Ravencliff, a coastal town in the UK, and surprisingly, she turns up now as a full-time companion for Doctor Who, The Fourth Doctor Adventures Series 12 in both Part 1 and Part 2. Part 1 has been released, New Frontiers, which has the Fourth Doctor, Margaret and Leela as a new TARDIS team. We've got 2 4-part stories. We have Ice Heist by Guy Adams and Antilia the Lost by Phil Mulryne. Now, this is a Fourth Doctor and Ice Warrior story. The Fourth Doctor and Leela make reference to them encountering the Ice Warriors in Blackpool, where they were trying to freeze Blackpool Tower. I double-checked, that's not actually a Big Finish or even expanded universe story in general. It's just some fun world building, so don't get confused if you do listen to Ice Heist. But this is the Fourth Doctor, who opens the story travelling with Leela, picking up Margaret, takes her to an ice planet in the far future, where there's an art auction happening from pieces across history, including a Martian Ice Warrior statue, and also one of her own pieces as well. And this gives her a massive existential crisis. These things start to culminate and build, and the Ice Warriors end up trying to commit a heist in this art exhibition in order to get their old statue back, and also a few other ulterior motives. Let's play a clip from Ice Heist.
I'd like to know what they want, Stringer. Well, here they are. Ask them.
We want the art. We want it all, and unless you transmat it to our ship within 30 seconds... I'll kill every single one of you.
I hope I'm not asking for a solid sonic thrashing from one of your nasty hand weapons, but isn't art out of the remit of the Martian military? What next? An attempt to hijack the Haywain?
If they hijack the Haywain, I'll call a constable.
What do you mean, Margaret?
Just a little joke, Doctor.
Military no more, as cultural envoy Caltac enjoyed pointing out. She is dead now. As little concern to my warriors and I as the two-faced principles of our homeworld.
Principles as embodied by the statue of Isklar, I presume? If that's what you're after? Yes. You could put it in the front garden and salute it every morning at cockcrow.
You mock. Do not. You will find my response most painful.
It's mad that Tom Baker is like in his 90s and he has so much enthusiasm and energy when recording these Big Finish stories, and how he just throws himself into this role after all of this time, and I love that clip. We'll play another one in a minute, but yeah, so the Fourth Doctor, in order to stop the Ice Warriors from killing the hostages in this exhibition, decides to help them try and break into the vault and transmat their way inside in order to get the art and the statues. Now Guy Adams' pitch for this story was that the Ice Warriors being all about honour and being all about dignity and respect and honouring your opponent and stuff, Guy Adams found that quite boring, so decided, what about unhonourable Ice Warriors? And that was the pitch for this story, basically. And it works really well. Now, there is a bit earlier on, we have Adele Lynch, who is playing Caltac, who was mentioned in that clip. Now, Adele Lynch played the Empress of Mars on the TV screens in Series 10's The Empress of Mars. So it's great that Adele is able to reprise the role as a female Ice Warrior for Big Finish. But they quickly exit the story, and then it becomes all about these other Ice Warriors who basically just want money, how they can't pay the bills with honour, how they can't, fuel their ships, and they can't do their wars with just honor. They need money and they need resources, so they try and do this heist. I'm wondering whether or not Guy Adams has listened to my audio story, The Collateral of Ivanhoe, because the Doctor, in order to stop them from hurting hostages, helping a group of unhonourable bank robbers break into a vault, sounds a little bit familiar, but to be fair, I wasn't even the first one to think of that either. We just put a Doctor Who spin on it, so I won't hold that against Guy Adams. But yeah, this is a really good Ice Warrior showcase story. It's just an awful lot of fun. We get the head of security, we get the capitalistic owners of this corporation who are hosting these auctions for these ice exhibitions. What really stands out for me, though, in this story is just how well Leela and Margaret work as a companion duo. They get separated from the Fourth Doctor about midway through the story, so the Fourth Doctor goes inside the vault with the head of security and the Ice Warriors in order to try and steal the artwork and try and break their way through the codes and everything, whereas Leela and Margaret stay in the lobby and try and figure out what's going on from outside from their vantage point. And the way that they work with each other is such an interesting dynamic, because Leela is someone who does not feel threatened by, the Fourth Doctor sharing attention with somebody else. Leela's not vain or shallow like that. And Margaret is caught quite off guard by the idea of having somebody try and protect her and proclaim that they're going to protect her. So it's a case of Margaret and Leela being polar opposite types of characters, just by age, by origins, by basically everything that they do. Leela is a savage of the Sever team, and Margaret is a sculptor from a coastal town in contemporary England. They are literally worlds apart, but they complement each other so well, and they've got a great dynamic. And it's just great how you have these two female characters who aren't competing with each other. I know that Big Finish has done that type of companion positive dynamic before, where you've got Liv and Helen in the Eighth Doctor set, where you've just got this really great friendship between these two female characters. Honestly, in fiction, two women competing against each other is almost like the bog standard, but here it's a really cool dynamic, and I really enjoyed listening to it. It was recorded in 2018, so Guy Adams must have timed out if he did. Oh, of course, I forget that Big Finish, they record these things so far in advance for the Fourth Doctor. Yeah, recorded in May, June, and September 2018. That's fair. 1 second, let's take, because they prepare these so far in advance. The Fourth Doctor Adventures Series 13, Volume 3. This was recorded in 2020. They are so far ahead for these releases. That's fair. Sounds like Shada. It's basically taking material from across the Doctor Who universe, but finding its own unique spin on it and making it really interesting. I really liked the dynamic with Margaret, where the Fourth Doctor takes her to the future to show her that her art and her sculptures are shown and sold in lavish auctions, and it gives her an existential crisis, because she's basically has her death confirmed by seeing the sculpture hundreds of years in the future being sold. And the way she reacted to it was so human, was so interesting. I think that this story comes to a really fun conclusion when you get these quietly evil capitalistic forces try and bring an abrupt end to the story in interesting ways. But of course, one of the main selling points of these box sets is Tom Baker. I'm going to play another clip from Ice Heist to listen to Tom Baker in his mid-80s playing the Fourth Doctor, and just how much energy and enthusiasm and how charismatic he is. Listen to this.
Hello, is this the security office? I'm the Doctor. I thought I'd better introduce myself, as we're bound to end up working together. Is anyone's seat? No? Good, yes. Some things afoot, things are awry, etc., etc. But never mind. Here I am. No doubt I'll think of something useful in a minute, and we'll all be in clover come tea time. And you are?
Currently racking my brains to recall whether I can have you legally shot under security legislations.
Not you, Allardyce Bernexer. I've met you. Him.
Stringer, head of security.
Ah, excellent. I hoped as much, given the sign on the door, but one never likes to assume. So, where are we at? What is the situation?
None of your business.
Exactly. Two of my friends have gone wandering off, and I'm afraid I must insist, Mr. Stringer.
We've lost security cameras and audio outside the auction area. My guards are investigating, but I can't raise them. There's something wrong with the temperature in here, and earlier we were picking up movement outside.
Stringer, It's none of his business. Kindly have him removed.
All security decisions are mine to make, head curator. Check my contract, and I've decided I trust him.
Oh, it's my air of nonchalance, isn't it? Yes, I've worked at it for decades. It's all about the pockets.
Genuinely mad. It's such a fun, energetic performance, and Ice Heist in general is just a really strong start to the Fourth Doctor, his 12th series of adventures. Now, we have a second story as part of this box set. You can pick up Ice Heist and Antilia the Lost separately if you are so inclined, but you can get the 12th Doctor Adventures Series 12 New Frontiers, and it comes as a slightly cheaper package deal. Now, Antilia the Lost by Phil Mullerine is basically the Fourth Doctor, Leela and Margaret, encountering a hidden wonder of the universe, Antilia, which is a lost planet where 50-ish years ago, it just went missing. It just disappeared, and nobody really knows why. A corporation has fronted an expedition to try and track down the lost planet and to find out what on earth happened. One of the people on this expedition is Theodora, played by Anjali Mahindra, not Rani Chandra. She is playing a different character here, a very different character, a young journalist who is along for the ride. And their expedition and the Fourth Doctor, Leela and Margaret, end up encountering each other on the forest planet of Antilia. Let's play a clip from Antilia the Lost.
Well, terra firma. Thank goodness for that, eh? Margaret?
Oh, thank you.
And Leela?
Was this your messing about in boats, Doctor?
Well, ideally, it shouldn't include a threat to life, but we're safe now. A tad damp.
Soaked through.
Doctor, look. The storm.
It's breaking up. Clear weather returning.
Excuse me.
Ah, yes? Hello.
Who are you?
Introductions, but of course. I'm the Doctor, this is Leela, that's Margaret.
But how did you get here?
And where are you from?
Unless you're from Antilia.
Antilia?
You have heard this name, Doctor?
Antilia. One of the great unsolved mysteries of the galaxy. It vanished like Atlantis.
Again, begging the question, who are you and what are you doing here?
Wait. Are you saying this is Antilia? Well, then, there are lots of questions. But couldn't we dry out first, have a cup of tea and a digestive? How about telling us your names?
Theodora Markway. He's Sanderson Krask. And Dr. Vance Scott is here, but he's back repairing our ship with Brett, the hired muscle.
Muscle? You have a warrior with you.
Our security agent.
Miss Markway, if you could refrain a moment from giving away all our information to these strangers.
If your ship is damaged, perhaps I can help.
Not before we know more about you.
Antilia the Lost it's an interesting premise, this manufactured island that just disappeared and no one knows why 50 years ago. The problem is that its middle act is basically nothing. They arrive on Antilia, they meet the expedition, and then the story meanders for about 2 episodes, and then it builds to a really awesome, satisfying conclusion. Part 1 and Part 4 of this 4-part story are really good, but that second act for Parts 2 and 3, it really does drag. It's quite disappointing, but the thing is that you can't just cut out Parts 2 and 3 and say, let's make Antilia the Lost a 2-part story, because there's too much world building happening across the fringes of the story to just ignore it. Antilia the Lost, I think what it needed to do was to make the Part 4 climax and make it Parts 3 and 4, like in general. Spread the climax across 2 parts to really keep the momentum going. There's some interesting world building in regards to the previous inhabitants of Antilia and what they have become, and it's truly horrifying, and there's some really great body horror and some great performances which really communicate and get across that body horror. I just wish that it was structured in a much more better and more interesting way. It's a bit disappointing that you have Margaret and Leela once again separated from the Fourth Doctor again, although Margaret is basically instrumental in the resolution of the story, which is really great. Not to say that to be a good companion you must always contribute to the culmination of the story, but the fact that Margaret does here in a really good and in-character way, I really liked that a lot, but I wanted to hear more of the Fourth Doctor and Margaret together, rather than both Ice Heist and Antilia the Lost. separating them. Leela and Margaret have a great dynamic, and that continues in Antilia the Lost, thankfully, but I want to hear more from Margaret and the Fourth Doctor now, or hear Margaret on her own and the Fourth Doctor and Leela again, although the Fourth Doctor and Leela have years worth of adventures from Big Finish, so that's a dynamic I can understand putting on the back burner, or throwing Margaret in order to add a new flavour and dynamic to it, which I believe they have done and are going to do. But Antilia the Lost is a good story with great characters, good world building, it's just the pacing. Part 1's great, it ends really, really well, although much like Ice Heist, it also has an anti-capitalistic message, which I'm all for, 100%, but having them in back-to-back stories and applied so similarly was a little bit disappointing and quite disarming to listen to in terms of like back-to-back stories. Now, I don't want to undersell it, I don't want to say it's a bad story or even like an average story. Antilia the Lost is a good story, it's a good listen, I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was just a bit disquieting to have it follow Ice Heist, and it is so different from Ice Heist, yet it is also so similar in terms of some of its dynamics that, you know, they even have a head of security as well, and it also leads to anti-capitalistic endings, you know, all that good stuff. It's, you know, I think that it was a little bit repetitive as a box set overall. It's good, it's just not great because of that pacing issue. I think it's worth listening to if you're a fan of the Fourth Doctor, but, you know, I think if you were to just listen to Ice Heist, or maybe wait and see if more interesting stuff happens with the Dr. Leela and Margaret dynamic later on in Series 12, you know, we'll see how it goes. So, we don't know exactly what the future stories are going to be for the remainder of Series 12. We've got The Wizard of Time, The Friendly Invasion, Stone Cold, and The Ghost of Margaret. This is 4 stories in the upcoming Series 12 Part 2, Angels and Demons. Who knows, maybe it's some Weeping Angel stuff, I don't know. But New Frontiers is a really strong start, I think, to Series 12. Certainly a stronger start than Solo was last year. Ice Heist is the head and shoulders standout. Guy Adams has a real knack for dialogue, for the Fourth Doctor, and for character and structure overall. Antilia the Lost is good, but that structure really does hold it back from being a must-listen-to story. Great setting, great world building, fun performance as well from Anjali Mahindra playing Theodora, a very different type of character that we've heard her play for Big Finish and on the screen before. It's just not essential listening, at least right now. I think it's worth picking up the box set overall, but if you were to just pick up Ice Heist and instead of Antilia the Lost, if you don't mind picking and choosing your releases, but for me, I'm a completionist, I don't think I'd be able to do that. I can understand why. Some people might prefer the slower pace, and it's almost like King Kong, where they go to this disappearing lost island and then a lot of messed up body horror stuff happens. If you're into that, maybe Antilia the Lost is your favourite out of the two. For me, though, Ice Heist was like the clear head and shoulders standout from New Frontiers. But it's still a strong start, and I really do like the dynamism that Nerys Hughes brings to the companion-doctor relationship, thanks to Margaret's inclusion.